It is said that our self-image, strongly held, essentially determines what we become. Welcome to the Personal Branding Podcast with me, Gachara. Now, I know we're talking about personal branding, and you're probably wondering, what does self-image have to do with personal branding? Now, your self-image is the key to your personality and it's the key to your behaviors. Essentially, it determines how you perceive yourself, how you think other people perceive you, and how you'd like to be perceived ideally. And what I've learned as an image consultant, and especially because I spend a lot of time trying to figure out how the mind works and why people do what they do, what I have come to discover is the importance of self-image in the entire self-identity journey. Every one of us always acts, feels, and behaves in a way that is consistent with our self-image, regardless of the reality of that image. What does that mean? If you think you're like that super successful, super smart person, you will find that you will carry yourself like a super successful, super smart person, even if you have not achieved that level of super success, whatever that means to you. Our self-image is essentially our self-talk. It's that impression we have of ourselves. And it doesn't matter what anybody else tells you. The most important thing is what you think about yourself. So let's start with an example of somebody who's suffering from anorexia. We all know what anorexia is, right? The eating disorder where you think you're fatter than you actually are. From the outside, when you look at this person, they look super skinny, emaciated, almost unhealthy. But then when they look at themselves in the mirror, they're seeing someone who is either fat or who has a potential of growing fat. And there's nothing that you can say, save for counseling or a lot of introversion and guidance that will remove them from that headspace. Then when you dig deep, you'll find that maybe when they were younger, they used to be made fun of because they were bigger, they were probably the chubbier child, and it affected them mentally in such a way that that's all they see when they look at themselves. Another probably more popular example is imposter syndrome. And imposter syndrome is something that affects a lot of people in the workplace today, especially as millennials. Imposter syndrome technically means that as much as you have achieved certain feats, you're doing really well in your career, you have a good family life, you have a good spiritual life. Technically, when it comes to, if you look at it from a personal branding perspective, you're doing quite well and everybody's celebrating you, but then you kind of feel like you're living somebody else's life, right? You kind of feel like an imposter. Most people can get through life with some sense of imposter syndrome. Even I feel it sometimes. You've gone for a seminar or a workshop somewhere and then people are introducing you and you're thinking, wow, is that really Olive? Or even worse, you don't celebrate your wins as much as you should because in your mind you're thinking, that wasn't really for me, that was for something else or for somebody else. When it becomes a problem is when you have severe imposter syndrome, which can become so detrimental that it becomes a glass ceiling in your career, so to speak. You've gotten to maybe, let's say your business is doing really well, you're in 5 countries across Africa, you're shipping your products to the US, to Europe, etc. You're doing great, everyone is celebrating you as a business person, but you're feeling like you can lose it all at any time because it's not really yours. That's what imposter syndrome looks like. Now, what does that have to do with self-image? Because you do not own your success completely, because you do not own this new person that you have become, it becomes harder to hold on to it. And they'll say, what you think about, what you spend most of your time thinking about is what actualizes in your life if you're into spirituality. So you're always waiting for something to go wrong. You're always waiting for reality to come and smack you in the face and tell you, this over here, down here place is where you should be. And your self-image will be content with that because it's being given some sort of justification. It's being recognized that, I'm putting you back into the place where you think you should be. Another simpler example is how we treat children, nature versus nurture. And studies have been done where children of the same grade were divided into 2 groups. And the first group was put down. They were told that they're stupid, they will never attain anything in life, they're not deserving of success, they can't even pass their exams, etc. Then the next group was celebrated. They were told how smart they are, how good they are in school, how the world is their oyster. Just made to feel a bit more confident about themselves. And what turned out was the children who kept being reprimanded and put down actually did worse in class than the children who are celebrated and elevated. Because when you're a child, you're still very impressionable, right? So those external opinions coming from our elders or people who are older than you that you're looking up to sort of get into your psyche, and that becomes what you start believing about yourself. So if you look at your self-image today and how you see yourself or how you perceive yourself, you'll also find that there's lots of strings that will tie it back to your childhood and how you were raised and the type of messages you used to be told about yourself when you were growing up. I, for example, used to be told that I'm skinny. In fact, I remember my nickname was Mosquito. I don't know if that's relevant. As we go through this thing that we call adulting, you'll find that everything that you do in life is and will continue to be dependent on how you see yourself. And it doesn't have to be anything ginormous that is completely out there. It could even be small micro habits. For example, if you believe that you're not a morning person, it will be almost impossible for you to spring out of bed at 5 o'clock in the morning because you have the impression or the perception of yourself as not being a morning person. If you are that child who was being told in school that you will never amount to anything, even how you present yourself in the workplace, how you present yourself in your business will become slightly different. There'll be a level of confidence that's not quite making it. You'll probably be the one who will get imposter syndrome because you've always been told as a child that you will never amount to anything. And if that thought process or if those words were never countered by positive words, when you do achieve something great, you'll think that you don't deserve it. It's all sort of tied together in this weird web where our perception of ourselves determines so much in our lives that everything that we do, everything that we touch, again, back to our three-legged stool, everything that we touch in our personal lives, everything that we touch in our professional lives, and how deep we get into our spirituality will be determinant on how we see ourselves. If you do not work on yourself first, any improvement will be temporary. So there's no point of taking the key elements of personal branding and trying to incorporate those into your life like this. There's no point of working with the data process to sort of start working towards building your strong personal brand. Because if you're not at that point where you're seeing yourself as that brand that you want to be, then anything that you create will become very temporary, very short-lived. And you'll wonder why you're not able to become consistent. What does all of this mean? If you want to build a strong, consistent personal brand that will have longevity, where you'll be living your truth and really experiencing life in the best way possible, then you want to start by creating a strong self-image. And what does that look like? What does creating a strong self-image mean? It's not nearly as complicated as you think it is. If you want to create a strong self-image, a strong and positive self-image, it all starts with being intentional, really taking the time to evaluate how you perceive yourself. A lot of us have baggage and we think all these negative thoughts about ourselves and we don't even realize it. We're just plowing through life because we don't have time to stop and think. In fact, I think the easiest way to get an essence of how you see yourself is to start listening to your self-talk. Apparently, most of us have such negative self-talk, you would not talk to a stranger or to your neighbor or to your boss or to your partner the way you talk to yourself. Once you start listening to how you talk to yourself, once you become a bit more intentional on understanding what your self-image actually looks like, you're then well poised to start creating a positive self-image of yourself. This work needs to be done before you start the personal branding process. And remember, it is highly recommended that you build or develop your self-image first before you start working on developing your personal brand. And don't be in a hurry saying, but no, I want to do my personal brand now. We'll talk about self-image later. No. Focus on your self-image. Focus on understanding you for who you really are before you do anything else, so that there can be an essence of longevity with whatever brand it is you create. I will take you through 5 steps that you can use to begin the process of building a stronger, more intentional, and more positive self-image. The first thing you want to do is reimagine yourself. What do I mean by reimagining yourself? Think of what your ideal self looks like. As Peter, what is the ideal version of Peter? What does Peter do? How does he carry himself? What does he do in his free time? How does he present himself at work? How does he present himself to his family? All those things. If it's not where you want it to be, of course, here we are trying to align and make sure that you are intentional and happy with who you really are. If it's where you want to be, great, we reinforce. If it's not where you want to be, imagine yourself being your ideal self. When we started, I said your self-image is how you perceive yourself, how you think other people perceive you, and how you'd like other people to perceive you, right? So reimagining yourself is thinking about how you'd like other people to perceive you. So if, say for example, you're 50 years old, you feel like you're still in your prime, but then everyone is looking at you like you're an old, boring man or woman, and you're thinking, how can I be seen as that young, energetic, vibrant person I know myself to be? So reimagine yourself as that young, vibrant, high energy, positive person that you want to be, and really embrace it. If you see it, you can become it, right? So reimagine yourself as that ideal, because that also helps you identify what that ideal self looks like. We all spend a lot of time talking about our ideal self, right? Saying, oh, I'd like to make more money, I'd like to be more successful, I'd like to be happier, you have all these things that we want, we have all these wants, but very few people will actually stop and try and see what that looks like. For me, success looks like, let's say, success looks to me like having freedom of time and money, right? I can do whatever I want, whenever I want, and I will have the financial resources to accommodate that type of a lifestyle. And what are these things that I want to do whenever I want to do? I want to be able to travel, I want to be able to do my work when I'm working on the beach. Like, you never know where I am right now, right? That's my ideal self. That's where I see, that's what truth looks like. For somebody else, success means driving the biggest car, living in the biggest mansion, and being an influential person in society. For somebody else, success looks like having an amazing family, beautiful children, a supporting partner, and just living a peaceful, simple life. Success means very many things to different people. What does success mean for you? What does happiness look like to you? So as long as you have not taken the time to visualize or to see what your ideal self will look like, then all those wants that you want are just wants. It's just the way when you're getting into the car to go on a trip or on a safari, you've already seen where you're going. So if you're going to the coast, probably at the back of your mind the night before, you were thinking about what you're going to be doing at the coast, like lying down, feet up, chilling, taking in the sun, coming back with sunburn. You've seen the entire process in your head, right? It's sort of, so even when you start the journey, you're already anticipating what's going to happen next. You're ready. So that's what I mean by reimagine yourself. Not getting into the car and saying, let's go, we'll see where we end up. And then you end up, I don't know, at your parents' house, and you're thinking, this is not where I wanted to go. But you did not identify where you wanted to go. You did not make it crystal clear in your mind where you wanted to go. So in the same way, reimagine yourself as being your best self, whatever that looks like, being at your ideal. And as you're reimagining yourself, you also need to identify your false beliefs. Your false beliefs are those things that you were fed when you were a child, those things that you grew up believing. Your false beliefs would be anything like that lady who has anorexia because maybe when she was young she was a bit chubby and people made fun of her for being fat, and now she's never seen herself as anything else but fat, right? That's a false belief. A false belief is thinking that you cannot hold and maintain a strong, healthy relationship because you never saw that with your parents growing up, or because you were told that, career-focused women, I get this one a lot. Women who are focused on their careers don't have enough time for good relationships. So that becomes a false belief that everybody is feeding you, and it starts affecting how you interact with the people around you. It starts affecting the type of relationships you will have. A false belief, and this is a big one, is that a woman's place is in the home, right? And if you are career-driven or if you're very successful, then they put negative connotations around that. They say that you're aggressive, they say that you're bossy, because that's not a woman's role. A woman's role is to nurture her children and is to, I was going to say cook for her husband, but maybe let's not get into that. Some false beliefs, like this one specifically, can be at a mass scale. And that's why you will see when women break the glass ceiling or achieve all these fantastic successes that they're now achieving, they're almost apologizing for or justifying for their success because they've not owned it yet, because there's this mass false belief that that's not a woman's place and we are infringing on territories. And that's why you will find the whole feminist movement, and I am digressing because I am a big feminist, and that's why you will find that the whole feminist movement is becoming a bit apologetic, because we were taught since we were young girls that as a girl you should be quiet, you should sit nicely, be polite, don't be too loud, don't be too aggressive. And these are the things that will start, or not that will start, and these are the things that affect our self-image. It is not always easy to identify our false beliefs, but they're there. Everybody has them. Some are more detrimental than others. Some, you can have some beliefs in your mind that came up as you were growing up that don't really affect your life, and you live a generally happy, healthy, successful life. For other people, it really drives them to a grinding halt. It makes them almost incapable to operate or to become constructive people in society. These are the people who will end up becoming alcoholics, or they will end up abusing drugs. And when you look at them, they have everything. In fact, I was having a conversation with somebody the other day, and it was about the amount of alcohol that Kenyans consume, because Kenyans drink a lot. We really are a drinking nation. And it was really about what are we trying to deal with, or worse yet, not deal with, that we are taking to the bottle, right? So that means that there's a whole group of people who are being held back by something and they don't know what that is. And so in that frustration, in that anxiety, and in that depression, you end up falling into bad habits. So identify those false beliefs, those ones that are holding you back. That thing that makes you doubt yourself, that thing that tells you, no, don't speak in this meeting. Hey, this meeting, these guys are bosses. If I speak, they'll not take me seriously. That thing that tells you, no, don't go for that networking event. You don't know anybody. In fact, you only got that invitation by chance. Why should you even be there? That thing that makes you think, well, I will probably not get that promotion because people like me, we don't get those promotions. That thing that makes you think, I'm only starting this Gachara so that I can at the very least put food on my table. Not because I'm trying to make anything grand and fantastic. Those are not for me, those are for other people. Those things that make you whisper all that negative stuff to yourself. Identify what those are, because it is by identifying or seeing them that you're able to deal with them from a point of strength or from a point of power. Once you have identified them, you don't really need to do anything about it. It's just, I see you there, I acknowledge your presence, but then I'm moving forward with intention. Now, once you've identified your false beliefs, and you can also do this in parallel, you want to cultivate your strengths, whatever those are. Cultivating your strengths, of course, is focusing on the things that you are good at. There's some things that come easier to you than they do to other people. And really work at developing them so that you can become the best at it, like the actual real best at it. In episode 1, I talked about how your strengths are your God-given talents, and you're more likely to achieve near perfect execution by focusing on your strengths than trying to develop your weaknesses, right? So I strongly believe that if you decide you're going to go for something, this is an industry you want to be in, if this is a particular role you want to play within that industry, then it is on to you to ensure that you achieve near perfect execution and get yourself to like the top 2 percentile of excellence, because that's what comes naturally to you. The process of cultivating your strengths will help you achieve a certain level of excellence, which will actually go a long way in improving your self-image, because finally you have that one thing that resonates with you, that one thing that you're amazing at, that thing that you actually feel happy and fulfilled doing. Then we have goal setting. It's important to set specific goals, this time not about your career. Remember, we talked about the 3-legged stool again in the previous episode, where personal branding is not just about developing your professional life, but also growing your spiritual life and your personal life. So this time we're setting specific goals for you. Set specific goals that will help you, or that will guide you towards becoming your best self, whatever that looks like. And lastly, we need to develop micro habits. Micro habits are the secret sauce to becoming the best version of yourself. Micro habits are adding small things to your everyday life that will help you achieve those big lifestyle changes. So let's say, for example, you are not a morning person and you're trying to get yourself to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning. If you're the person who normally starts your day at 7:30, 8, 9, even 10, you're not going to start waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning just because you've wished it to be, right? Maybe you will for 1, 2, 3 days, but then you'll slowly find yourself falling back into your old, boring habits that you're trying to change. So the secret behind micro habits in this case is, let's say, just deciding you're going to start your day at 6 in the morning. Not even 6. If you're the type of person who normally wakes up at 8, say for the next week, I want to wake up at 7. And be intentional and wake up at 7 every day for that week, just 1 hour earlier. Once you've achieved that and you naturally wake up at 7, then you want to say, okay, no, now I want to start waking up at 6. Slowly until you get to that 5 a.m. start that you want. So these 5 simple tools, well, they're actually not that simple, I'm lying. But these 5 tools, you can start being intentional about your self-image, becoming aware of how you perceive yourself and developing on that even before you start the personal branding conversation. It is said that your self-image is actually a self-fulfilling prophecy. So make sure at the very least you give yourself a good one, because you can have, do, and be anything you want if you work on your self-image first. Fake it till you make it. Maybe you want to fake it till you become it. Become the best version of yourself so that as you're creating your personal brand, it can not only be authentic, but it can really be a more elevated version of yourself. There's no point of repackaging the outside when the inside has not been fixed yet. So So thank you for taking the time to listen to the Personal Branding Podcast with me, Olive Gachara. Some food for thought, some introspection, but all in all, it starts with you, and you are the most important person that you need to work on first.